All right, in this tutorial, we're just going to make a simple ggplot. So this plot down here is what we're after. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how ggplot is set up, and then just step by step go through the code to make a simple scatter plot with labeled axes, axes in ggplot. So first thing is talking a little bit about how ggplot is structured. So your ggplot call that will make a plot looks something like this bold text here. And basically what it's doing is the ggplot function itself, so ggplot here, creates the plotting space. So it's creating this space here where you have an X and a Y axis and maybe other things that you're controlling within that axis. And so in the ggplot function, you're telling it, what data am I going to use? And then in this AES function, the aesthetic function, you are going to tell it how to control the x-axis and how to control the y-axis. So what columns in your data set control the x-axis and what controls the y-axis. And then we have a plus sign letting it know that more is coming. And then you can tell it how to represent those data with different geoms. So this is geom point, but if we wanted to show them as a line, it would be geom line. And there are lots and lots of different geoms that we're not going to get into right here. So we have data equals cars here, because in this case, we're using that data set. Then this second one is, and we'll write it in longer form when we do the example, but it's mapping equals AES, and this is a function. And we're going to say control the x-axis with speed and control the y-axis with distance, and then show those data as points. So considering that, let's go back to our script. And again, in this case, we need to load the tidyverse library. And it's already loaded, so nothing's going to happen here. But the next thing we're going to do is we want to use the dataset trees, but because it's a built-in package in R, it doesn't show up in our environment. But if we just come down to the console and type trees equals trees, now we can see it shows up, which is nice because I kind of want to show you how I use this little environment tab to help me as I write a ggplot line. So if we click this little down arrow here, we can see the names of the columns in the trees data frame, and that's going to help as we construct our ggplot. So if we look at this plot down here and think about the cartoon that we just looked at, we know we want to be showing the trees data. We want the y-axis to be volume and the x-axis to be diameter, and then we want to show the plot as points. So let's go ahead and start by typing ggplot. And remember, within this core ggplot line, we are going to set up the plot space. And you can see in the little suggestion that pops up, we're going to give it data and then mapping in the aesthetic function. So I'm going to say data equals trees. And then I'm just following the yellow up above, mapping equals AES. And then AEX, we give it X and Y. So X equals, in this case, we want diameter, which is girth in the data. And we're going to see how we can change the name later. And then Y equals volume. And it's nice having these right here because you can be sure that you get your capitalization right, etc. So you might be asking, okay, so what happens if we just run the ggplot? And let's think about what should happen, right? We are telling it what data to use to control it with the X, control girth with X, control the Y with volume, control the X with girth. Got that mixed up a second. But we're not telling it how to show the data. So what's this going to do? Let's run it. I'm going to hit Command Enter. Kind of what we would expect, right? We told it what the y-axis should be, what the x-axis should be, and what data we were using, but we didn't tell it how to show the points, so we get a blank plot space. Now, if we add the geom to say, all right, you have the plot space. Now show the data as points. And I do that Command Enter or Control Enter on Windows again. Aha, now we have our data. Okay, so using the data trees, X is equal to girth, Y is equal to volume, and our geometry is points. And just to really quickly show, if you change this to line, it'll show it as a line. And like I said, there are a lot of different options here, and I'll show other ones in different videos, but we're trying to keep these short. So the other things that we want to change just really quickly here are, one, this default ggplot color and line theme isn't great. There's just a lot of distractions in the background. And so I like to use a different theme. And so again, if we want to add more to the plot or give it more instructions, we put another plus. And then I'm going to change it. You can, if you start typing theme and then underscore, you can see there are a lot of options, and you can choose these, and they're different setups. They're already loaded in. I'm going to use theme classic, and we can run that to see what that does. You can see it just makes a classic, simple plot, the X and Y axes, and no clutter in the plot space. Now, the last thing we want to do is add some axis labels. So there are a couple different ways to do this. Even we are going to use labs, which is labels, and say we want our X label to be equal to diameter in inches, because that's what the data is, and then Y equals, and these have to be in quotes, volume in cubic feet. And that's got to be a plus after here. So now this should change our x-axis to this and our y-axis to that. And you can see that it does that. So we have a nice, neat little ggplot. And that is that.